Good evening and welcome to your Rangers Review pre-match show with myself, Chris Jack, back at base, and Joshua Barrie, as you can see, live from the press room in Malmo. I'm hoping it stopped raining eventually, Josh. It's been a difficult condition for you boys trying to get out and about and see a bit of the city over the last 24 hours or so.
Do you know what, Chris? It has, and I've reminded people of this on the morning briefing. But there was some suggestions, some fears of a pitch inspection. I started to see some tweets about that and whatnot about an hour and a half ago. But the rain has let up somewhat in the last kind of couple of hours. The pitch actually looks pretty good considering how wet it's been here in Malmo. We'll see how maybe it cuts up, or if it does, over the 90 minutes. But yeah, thankfully the rain has stopped for now.
A pitch inspection and a Thursday night postponement would have caused absolute chaos with travel plans and fixture plans and all sorts. Thankfully, thankfully we don't have that to contend with. What Rangers do have to contend with is a very tricky game. We spoke about it on the morning briefing earlier on with Derek. There was a lot of talk, obviously, a lot of the comments that surrounded the selection from Philippe Clement, left back, clearly being the main talking point. And if I bring your Rangers team for tonight up, we can see that Casemiro gets the nod at left back. I think he was, out of all the options, he was the one that we didn't really discuss this morning because it looked like he was perhaps the one that was least likely to get there. We believed it would be John Sterling. Derek was plumping for Robbie Fraser. It's neither of those options, both on the bench. Casemiro gets his first start for Rangers. You wrote a really in-depth piece on him a couple of weeks ago, looking at his career, his qualities, his flexibility as a defender, and that flexibility is definitely coming into play over in Sweden tonight.
Yeah, I've stuck the pieces on my Twitter feed. If people want to kill time for the next 45 minutes, Chris, then that piece is in the live chat as well. But yeah, I mean, Casemiro is the. I know we'll get onto Egerman because I know people want to speak about that. But the versatility has kind of been the hallmark of his career so far. He's played at centre half, he's played at right back. One of the reasons, if you read that piece that Feyenoord signed him, was because they wanted someone who could give them that type of versatility across the defence. Predominantly played as a right back last season in Austria. Obviously came through the Ajax academy, so someone who's pretty comfortable with the ball at his feet. Not watched a ton of him, but what you would say, Chris, is he's been brought in for this. And if we're discussing John Sterling and the fact that he maybe can't be that type of player this season because you've got to focus on his development, he can't be the one who has to fill in lots of different areas. Casemiro can, because Rangers don't own that same kind of development responsibility to him, and ultimately he's not their player, although there is that option within the contract as well. He's someone who's pretty comfortable playing around the pitch and has done that for the entirety of his career. So he's the choice at left back tonight, and it's a big game for him to be thrown in for his first start, but he's here to play. So yeah, let's see how he does.
I'll run through your Rangers subs, and as you mentioned there, Josh, there is a name, one noticeable omission from that subs list. It is Kelly, Munn, Dowell, Sterling, Balogun, King, Raskin, McCausland, Fraser, McKinnon, Lovelace and Curtis. The name that obviously stands out as not being there is Hamza Egerman. The manager was asked about team news in his press conference yesterday. It might even have been yourself that asked him about team news and asking about also the Oscar Cortez situation. No Egerman. What's the situation as we understand it?
Yeah, still trying to exactly firm it up, Chris. So we won't say definitively until we've spoken to Clement. Some suggestion it could be some sort of passport issue, but I can't say that for certain because I've not had that confirmed. But I believe our friends at Heart and Hand have tweeted that news out a few minutes ago. So listen, we'll put it to Clement after the game. As you say, he didn't mention it yesterday in his team news, and that's interesting because as far as we are aware, Egerman was training yesterday. It's not a fresh injury, but we'll wait and see what Clement has to say on that post-match to confirm it as a certainty. He might actually be asked about it pre-match. He'll obviously speak to TNT Sports and Rangers TV as well, so people can keep their eyes peeled for that. what you would say is it's a light bench, isn't it, Chris? It's a really light bench. We were speaking today about the fact that, look, there's not many options on the left side of the pitch. You've not got many options at the top end of the pitch either tonight. So it increases the emphasis on Rangers having a good start because they don't have too many options to change it from the bench. You know, no Cortez, no Matondo, no Igaman as well, no Danilo. Again, we've been here before. We've spoken about it so much last season. Clement not having the tools at his disposal, but he needs to make do with what he has tonight with that front four, which is largely what everyone thought it would be, because he doesn't have a striker apart from Finlay Curtis, who's obviously still 17 years old, to come on tonight off the bench. So yeah, big emphasis, I think, on the starting 11 having a good game and making sure that the game is in a good stage for Rangers after the hour mark, because of the limited options from the bench.
Like, it's interesting. The manager is usually quite upfront and open on these injury situations. He doesn't always give like huge in-depth answers on exact timescales and exact circumstances surrounding players. But generally, if someone's not going to be there, he usually says someone's not going to be there. So interesting that Igaman wasn't mentioned. But as you say, we'll try and get to the bottom of that, and we will bring it to you across all the social media channels as soon as we can. In terms of the rest of the side, Josh, I think it all but picks itself. Now it's very much as expected. What can you expect from Rangers in terms of their approach to this one tonight? Now, you wrote the piece on Malmo this week and their kind of unique approach to games. They're clearly they're up to speed in terms of their domestic situation. How do Rangers get a result? What's their best way of getting a result? Is it being on the front foot and trying to take the game to Malmo, or do you expect them to try and soak up certain areas of pressure at certain times and then try and I think one of the points you actually mentioned on the show this morning, there's not a lot of pace in there. So if you're looking at soaking up a bit of pressure and then trying to catch Malmo, it's hard to see where those type of options are going to come from.
I think that's a great point, Chris, because if you're to sit deep and soak up pressure, how do you get up the pitch? So you see, if you take Desser's last two performances, away at Dundee United and at home to Dundee, the Dundee game, we spoke about it before, it suits him. He doesn't have to get Rangers up the pitch, and he can just, he can make his actions playing on the shoulder of defenders. If you look at how he gets both of those goals, he's always moving away from the ball instead of towards the ball. He's not someone who really wants to link play, wants to stay on the periphery of games and touch the ball probably minimal times. Now, when he gets a shot, sometimes he touches the ball too many times before he takes that shot, but you take my point. The strongest part of his game is not getting Rangers up the pitch. You say, okay, maybe you have someone next to him or players next to him who can play close to him to help you do that. I think we've seen with Cherney that he's still getting up to speed, but again, he's not a lightning fast player. He's probably a better ball carrier than players Rangers have had in those positions over the last couple of seasons. But there's not an abundance of options there that you look at and you think, yeah, that's how Rangers are going to get forward if Malmo do have a lot of territory. That's one of the reasons I think they should be aggressive tonight. Try and stop Malmo in their build-up as opposed to setting off. I think you will see that. I think Clement's pressing structure normally looks better when it's on the front foot instead of setting off and adapting to the opposition, particularly because if Malmo get into their stride, they will be pretty unpredictable. Will Bajrami move in field and play next to Lawrence as much as we saw at the weekend? I don't think quite as much, because I don't think Rangers will have quite as much of the ball and they don't have that left-footed winger to provide width. But to answer your question, they don't really have a load of players to get them up the pitch. They don't have an outlet on one side, a Matondo or a Cortez. They don't have too many ball carriers, I'd argue, in that team. I think they need to try and be aggressive so that they're not penned back into their own third. And then we see that type of performance from Dessers where he is on the periphery in a negative sense because he's not involved. He's not linking the play and he's not able to hold the ball up. I think he suits games, as mentioned, when Rangers start their game higher up the pitch, and that might just give them a little bit of a better chance of stopping Malmo in the tracks tonight. I think it's also important to stress that the Malmo coach sat just in front of where I was yesterday and said that his team can be unpredictable for him as well at points because of how they play. So a lot of unknowns tonight, two pretty unpredictable teams, and I'm interested to see how it plays out for a lot of reasons.
We spoke a bit about the weather and the pitch earlier on. Have you had a chance to go out and look at that surface? You mentioned to us this morning. It looks quite a tight stadium. Should be a good atmosphere, all set up for potentially an interesting game. But have you had a chance to go out and get a look at the park? Any concerns over how it will play and if that will have any impact at all on how this tie unfolds?
looks all right at the moment. You never know. I mean, the rain has been really, really bad, but looks all right at the moment. It's a quite a compact little stadium, only 22,000 people, but we'd expect there to be quite a good noise, a good number of Rangers fans over as well. So it's a difficult place for them to start the Europa League game. As you know, Chris, if they manage to get a result tonight on limited resources in terms of the players that they have available, then suddenly your three wins in a row and maybe a little bit of positivity starts to build. If not, Rangers can't really afford to stay in this routine of winning a couple of games and then not getting a result because you're unable to then build the momentum. So I think quite a lot of riding on this tonight because performances matter so much at the moment as people look for something to buy into. It's probably now famous last words. Rangers might have a winning goal from the bench. It doesn't, not many people would predict that, but I think a lot relies on how this starting 11 play purely because of the options that Rangers have to change things.
A comment came in earlier on that I now can't actually find, but it was along the lines of Thursday nights are basically Rangers nights. Now this competition has been good to Rangers over the years, but this is a very different Rangers side. This is not the Rangers team of the run to Seville. This is not the Rangers team that Steven Gerrard recorded so many impressive results in this competition with. Could this almost be like the manager spoken about it being the start of a new journey, the start of a new cycle after the end of last season's cycle? What could a result and performance actually do for this group? We saw the importance, I think, of that under Steven Gerrard when he built that squad in 2018.
Yeah.
European performances and European results, it gave so much to that team individually and collectively. It gave them, they were able to raise their levels. It helped them tactically. It helped them mentally. Could a result and performance tonight have that same small step for this current group?
Very much that point I just made. I think a result will go one of two ways. Rangers at the moment, they're never far from negativity. That's the reality. And until they manage to build some sort of momentum, until they manage to build up a little bit of steam again and get results in a row, then that's gonna be the same. They need results to change the mood and kind of change the narrative. Thursday nights have been Rangers nights. They've always, regardless of the form they've been in domestically, they've tended to do well in the Europa League. As mentioned, kind of in the lead up to this, I feel like I saw a comment on Twitter, and forgive me because I can't remember who it was, speaking about if you think back to the road to Seville and the opening Europa League game Rangers had then, it was Lyon at home, I think, and that was when Steven Gerrard was still there. And there was a little bit of negativity at the fact that Rangers weren't in the Champions League, and there wasn't much optimism about that campaign. Obviously, that was an exceptional campaign, and I don't think that's going to happen again. But it does just show you if you can win, winning obviously makes people feel good and can give Rangers a little bit of momentum going back to Ibrox, going back to a full Copeland stand on Sunday against Hibs. But I think it's going to be tough, Chris. They've got this game, they've got Lyon coming up, 3 games at Ibrox coming up. So there is a chance if you manage to, especially not lose and get some sort of result to start the new group stage with tonight. It maybe gives you a little bit of an opportunity to build but let's see how they go, because this Rangers team are still unpredictable, and as we've come back to in a couple of times, they don't have an abundance of options tonight.
A couple of predictions from Stephen before I get yours. He's going 3-2 for Rangers. Brian fancies Cherney for the first goal, and Jamie going for Curtis off the bench for a 2-1 win. I think that's very much the stuff that dreams are made of for a young player like Curtis. Gone Rouge, perhaps a more likely goal scorer in Cyril Dessers. Just finally, Josh, on this competition as a whole, it's also a new format. Interested to see how it plays out. How do you see what do you think a par score could be in terms of points? Now, you've always become accustomed with the previous sections. You know that if you pick up a couple of wins at home and you get a win away, that should be enough. Maybe a couple of draws away should be enough. It's obviously very different under this new format. As you say, a result tonight would be a really positive step for Rangers. Defeat, not a disaster with those home games to come, but we know the type of challenges Man United and Spurs obviously being the headline ones that will come. So how do you see this new section unfolding?
Probably need the result in the first couple of games, certainly the first few, because you have I think you have an away game, then 2 home games at Ibrox, don't you? Lyon's going to be difficult. Nice away from home is going to be difficult. Olympiacos away from home is going to be difficult. Tottenham at home Clement said yesterday the Rangers had no presence, I think was the phrase he used in the draw, and that's right. He had a couple of really good results in European competition last season as Rangers manager, Real Betis away, and what stands out from that game, thinking back to it, is that Rangers were aggressive. They didn't really sit back. Similarly, away at Benfica, so that and away at Kiev, they managed to get a result as well. So yes, if you look at Rangers' last 20 games, if you look at their last 10 away games, I can't think off the top of my head. I don't think it would be great. But if Clement can try and replicate that level of performance, and remember when he went away to Real Betis, he had Ross McCauslandon, who was still at the very start of his Rangers career, only a couple months after his debut. He had Jose Cifuentes in that starting 11 who hadn't played much. He had Dessers at that point who really hadn't played much, really hadn't kicked on in his Rangers career and hadn't scored a lot of goals. So he's managed to get results away in Europe against difficult opponents before. Going to be difficult tonight, but yet, of course, there is reason to be optimistic because there's a lot of players still in the squad, or maybe not a lot, but a few players still in the squad who have got results away from home in Europe before. And I think they'll have an away section that probably believes they can do something as well. So let's see. A result would be fantastic for Clement to try and build a little bit of goodwill. And looking forward to seeing how they get on.
A couple more predictions just before we finish up. Stuart goes 3-0 with Big Cyril getting a couple. Blazing Blue fancies a 3-1. Kenny slightly more conservative, but fancies Rangers to get a clean sheet. And Alan is going for if it ends up being 7-2, then we're in for a very busy evening. Josh, before I let you go, I'm assuming you're not going to go 7-2, but give us a scoreline.
1-1. I'm saying 1-1. Sitting on the fence, Chris. It was 1-1 away against Dynamo Kyiv. I'll be boring to say 1-1.
I'm going to be equally as boring and go for the same result. But we are both here, as always, to be proven wrong and to be shouted at later on when Rangers do actually win 7-2. So time will tell. Josh, thanks for your time. Enjoy the game. I'll let you go and get your seat. Remember, you can keep all across the website and our social media channels full coverage during the game, and we will have the best reaction, full press conference coverage, mixed zone coverage, and of course all the best insight and analysis on the site. Join myself and Josh on the video again later on, and enjoy the game, whatever you're watching. Thank you.